Do you care about age? Do you think about, like, oh, I'm going to be 90? Does that matter to you?
I don't think about it. I sometimes think, Jesus, who the hell want to live this long?
Now 93 years old, Clint Eastwood has gone through it all to get where he is today. In your opinion, how does he appear now? This legendary actor has just spoken up about the horrific and difficult years he endured in Hollywood, which caused him tremendous emotional distress. All through his life, and particularly in his early years in Hollywood, Eastwood faced a number of incredible challenges. He overcame incredible obstacles in his relationships and professional life while fighting personal demons, despite his prosperous career. What was the nature of those demons, and how was he able to vanquish them? Come with us as we uncover the truth about Clint Eastwood's life story. Shall we begin? The great actor and director Clint Eastwood was born to Clinton and Ruth Eastwood in 1930, at the height of the Great Depression. The economic downturn was not enough to shake the Eastwood family's financial footing. Nevertheless, they encountered unique challenges. During Clint's formative years, the family lived in constant flux due to his father, Clinton Sr., whose profession necessitated many moves. Because of the ripple effect of numerous relocations, Clint enrolled in as many as 10 different schools throughout his formative years. Because everything was always changing, he had a hard time making friends that would stick around. However, Clint chose not to focus on the topic so often. Clint has been guided in his life thus far by the strong work ethic and the notion that success is not achieved without effort that he acquired from his father. Even as a youngster, the celebrity was shy and reticent, having a hard time letting people in. He remained painfully bashful until he was convinced to perform in the school production. Though he was afraid at first, the experience changed him for the better and paved the way for him to become the charming and self-assured director and actor he is today. But Clint Eastwood followed in his father's footsteps when it came to his attitude toward school. The football star senior from Clinton didn't put an emphasis on his study and dropped out of university. Similarly, Clint had to enroll in summer school to make up for his lackluster performance in the regular school year. He was so bad in school that he had to redo a whole grade. He was expelled from high school due to his persistent reputation as a troublemaker. Ruth Eastwood's anecdotes about Eastwood's mother provide insight into his defiant nature. Reflecting his rebellion against conventional teaching, he made headlines for writing an explicit message on a scorecard from a sporting event and for burying a person in effigy on the school grounds. Thanks to his early enlistment in the United States Army, Eastwood's life took a surprising turn. While serving his country, he gained valuable life lessons. His employment as a swimming instructor, which he pursued after finishing a basic training, kept him out of the Korean War in 1950. A fortuitous turn of events changed his trajectory. He became close with a special unit while teaching pool lessons, and it was there that he met Martin Miller and David Janssen, two famous actors from Hollywood. After his service, they suggested he go to Los Angeles, and Eastwood took this suggestion to heart. Eastwood was friends with several people. Among them were musician Lenny Niehaus and former American soccer turned Hollywood star David Janssen. They met local ladies in bars, got somewhat famous for their antics, and partied together. When Eastwood was in the service, he also started showing movies in the barracks. He said he may have seen The Battle of San Pietro 50 times in the span of 2 years since he kept playing it. He learned the ins and outs of filmmaking, including shots, rhythm, and substance, while working as a projectionist on the side. On his days off, he would frequently go to Carmel to relax. Local pubs were his hangouts for music and people watching, but something went horribly wrong during one of his leave periods. He came perilously close to losing his life in an aircraft catastrophe that occurred on his way back from Seattle. The influence of this near-death experience on Eastwood's life was profound. Among the most terrifying experiences of his life, he said, with a buddy who was an Air Force pilot, he was returning to San Francisco on a plane when the jet crashed when he was 20 years old. Being in a position he couldn't change made his terror all the more real and powerful. Didn't you feel the same way? The accident site was also a well-known great white shark habitat, which just added to the terrifying experience. Unfortunately, Eastwood found out about this after the fact. In light of the danger he had unintentionally encountered, he voiced his satisfaction at not knowing at the time. Following the disaster, he and the other passengers had to swim to safety. Although Eastwood characterized this event as painful, it was far from the only one. We will reveal all of the dangers and difficulties he encountered as we go on. The path to stardom for Clint Eastwood wasn't an easy one. While attempting to make a name for himself in show business, he faced a number of serious obstacles. He had a tough time landing gigs when he initially started performing. As an uncredited lab technician in the film Revenge of the Creature, he made his cinematic debut. Eastwood juggled a number of odd jobs to make ends meet. He ran an apartment complex and worked at a Texaco station close to the General Service Studios on Santa Monica Boulevard, which allowed him to save money. Among his other occupations were cleaning a furniture factory and excavating pool pits. Unfortunately, his career took a major hit when Universal Studios chose to terminate his contract just 1.5 years after he began working with them. This sudden firing was discouraging for Eastwood, who was aiming for bigger parts and more fame. Even though Eastwood was unprepared, Universal said he didn't look the part, picking apart his teeth and Adam's apple. In addition to professional failures, the icon suffered from extreme anxiety, which was especially problematic during his early acting days. At its worst, he was a nervous wreck while filming Revenge of the Creature. He had to learn lines by heart and act while the film's director and producer were at odds with each other. He distinctly remembered being a nervous mess, a memory that persisted and made his uneasiness worse. Working on the 1970s picture Joe Kidd, Eastwood endured yet another severe anxiety attack, this time exacerbated by a bronchial ailment. His anguish escalated to the point that he thought he was about to die. The mental toll of fame and the hard profession showed in his ongoing battles with anxiety. Eastwood kept at it, attending to auditions, working out and improving his acting chops despite everything that went wrong. What kind of determination do you believe he needed to keep going? Unfortunately, Clint contemplated quitting the profession after landing a lead role in a low-budget Western that was so awful. While visiting CBS television studios, he happened to meet a director from the Rawhide series, which was a stroke of luck. This meeting changed everything. The part of Rowdy Yates, a supporting cowboy, was being filled by a young actor that the director was casting. For Eastwood, Rowdy was the defining film of his career. The TV network saw his talent and propelled him to popularity from the pilot, even though he didn't find the role very exciting. With his depiction of Clint, a rugged, attractive, and accomplished marksman and fighter, the program gained a new energy that immediately captivated a younger demographic. He warmly remembered those years, when he was the lead actor for the show from its start to its last episode, which lasted a whole 7 years. He saw a doubling of his initial $600 income at season's end. His salary grew to a respectable sum as the series continued. The series wasn't a huge hit, but it was crucial in Clint Eastwood's rise to stardom. What happened to Clint Eastwood after his father died and how it affected his life and work? The unexpected death of Clint Eastwood's father from a heart attack occurred in the 1970s, adding another personal tragedy to the actor's already troubled life. Clint, The Life and Legend, written by Patrick McGilligan, describes this tragic occurrence that happened in July 1970. Clint Eastwood Sr., his father, was preparing to play golf when he tragically never left the house. Despite her best attempts, his wife Ruth was unable to save him when she discovered him in his dying moments. At the time, Clint Sr. was a mere 64 years old. When Clint and his family learned of Eastwood's untimely death, it was particularly devastating because his grandpa had lived into his 90s. After Clint Eastwood's father passed away, he began to question his own life choices. His perspective on health, diet, and exercise took a dramatic turn for the better as a result. After realizing how important it was to take care of himself, he began to devote more time and energy to his health. Fritz Maines, a film producer close to Eastwood, observed the profound impact the actor's death had on him. Coping with the loss was difficult for him, and he had a hard time understanding what had transpired. To emphasize how deeply personal and impactful the event was for Eastwood, Maines brought attention to the emotional toll that the loss had on him. Aside from dealing with his own issues, Clint Eastwood also had to deal with a great deal of controversy around his film American Sniper. Critics said that the picture would glorify war. While defending the picture in many interviews, Eastwood stressed that it did not seek to promote any political agenda, but rather to tell the stories of Navy officers and soldiers who made difficult choices in order to serve their country. Bradley Cooper's performance as Sniper Chris Kyle was a big bone of contention. A number of viewers saw Kyle's inflammatory language about the adversary, which included terms like savages and despicably evil, as an endorsement of his radical worldview. Using his strong stance against violence and war, Eastwood fiercely campaigned against this reading. As a nation's right to self-defense is paramount, he said, people must give serious attention to issues of conflict. Eastwood did not want to promote any particular political or ideological position with this picture. Rather, he wanted to draw attention to the difficulties and sacrifices of military duty, which has led to heated disputes and divergent interpretations of its meaning. His goal was to highlight the human aspects of war by illuminating the reality experienced by individuals engaged in it. Unfortunately, he wasn't always understood correctly and couldn't persuade everyone to agree with him. Because of his complicated family dynamics and several romances, the actor's private life has been under intense scrutiny. He has fathered children with several women and had multiple serious affairs throughout his love life. Kimber was born of one of his prominent early relationships, which occurred in the early 1960s with stuntwoman Roxanne Tunis. To add another layer of complication to his already complicated personal life, Eastwood became a father to 8 children throughout the years, from various partnerships. People started to wonder if Eastwood could really have steady relationships. Maggie, his long-term companion of 20 years, and actor-director Sandra Locke were married at the same time. In the early 1950s, he had a fateful encounter that would turn into the beginning of his love affair with Maggie Johnson. Clint and Maggie met paths shortly after Clint's release from the service. Maggie was a student at UC Berkeley. Despite Maggie's relationship status, Clint and Maggie met on a friend-arranged blind date. They went on many dates due to their obvious connection. Still, Clint had other relationships going on at the same time. He had a kid with another lady in Seattle before he moved to Los Angeles, which Maggie didn't know at first. Their romance blossomed, and they even started talking about marriage, despite Clint's reservations. Clint finally got around to popping the question, and they exchanged vows on December 19, 1953. Lori Murray, Clint's daughter, was born in Seattle and put for adoption a few months before their wedding, although Clint was unaware of this. The fact that their love interests overlapped caused quite a stir and made many wonder how Eastwood handles relationships in general. His public curiosity with his private life intensified as he started seeing Frances Fisher while still seeing Locke, and subsequently dated Dina Ruiz while seeing Fisher. To add to the air of secrecy around him, Eastwood was always quiet and reticent, even with his closest friends. His real self and his on-screen character come together in him, according to film producer Lily Zook, who said he had depth beyond appearances. On the production of Clint Eastwood's 1975 film The Eiger Sanction, tragedy befell film crew members. Tragically, Mike Hoover was seriously injured in an accident that killed seasoned mountain climber David Knowles. Despite Dougal Hastings, the director of the International School of Mountaineering, warnings, Clint Eastwood was adamant on completing all of his stunts. Fearing the dangers of climbing the enormous Eiger, Hastings voiced his displeasure at Eastwood's persistence. However, Eastwood was determined to show the climbing sequences as realistic as possible. Therefore, he never wavered from his stance. In the early days of filming, Eastwood was prepared to tackle the daunting task of climbing the 13,015-foot Eiger, one of the most treacherous mountains in the world. Tragically, this happened while filming one of the scenarios. Tragically, British climber David Knowles was killed, and Hoover, who was with him, was severely injured when a huge boulder broke loose and struck them. Because of how the incident upset Eastwood, he almost scrapped the whole project at first. Despite his initial shock and grief, Eastwood decided to keep filming because of how committed the actors and crew were. The catastrophe had a great effect on Eastwood, whose reaction to it was regarded as bizarre and terrifying. There was yet more complication to Eastwood's life. He had differing views on how to interact with his children, such as Kimber. The fact that she had both deep feelings for her father and that she had trouble connecting with him shows how troubled their relationship was. Another kid, Laurie Murray, came to terms with her adoption in the 90s, and, after doing some digging, learned that Clint Eastwood was indeed her biological father. At the 2004 Academy Awards, Eastwood greeted Murray when she phoned him and presented her to the press. Eastwood had a vague but strong suspicion that she could be pregnant again before she contacted him. Because of the disclosure, Eastwood's family life became even more complicated. The chaotic family life of Clint Eastwood is portrayed by his children's varied experiences with him and his weird and multiple relationships. Not only does Eastwood face attacks on his family, but also on his political ideas and the administration as a whole. Eastwood has had his share of problems coping with public scrutiny, particularly about his political views, despite his stardom. Misunderstandings and sometimes fraudulent quotations caused public outcry when he voiced his opinions on different political leaders. When some of Eastwood's admirers thought he had formally backed then-President Trump, they took offense. Despite his positive remarks about Trump, no formal endorsement was issued. His political attitude became a source of contention as a result of this. "I am endorsing Mr. Trump for president," was a misleading quotation by Eastwood that went viral in 2019. But Eastwood never said anything along those lines. He did not formally support a candidate in 2016, however. He did say that Trump was better than Hillary Clinton. In 2020, he changed his stance and began to back Democratic candidate Michael Bloomberg, saying that Bloomberg was the greatest option. While he did say he was on board with Trump's policies, he was critical of his conduct, particularly on social media. Unlike many prominent personalities, Eastwood demonstrates a refreshing equilibrium and realism in his relationship with politics. He has never completely embraced politics, but he has always been good at it. He is a formidable figure in politics without ever diving headfirst into it. Eastwood was a person who might have easily risen up the political ranks to become a senator, congressman, or governor, but he chose not to. In his one and only run for public office, he served as mayor of Carmel, a position he peacefully held while overseeing significant reforms. While in office, he expanded individual rights and reversed irrational regulations, such as the one that forbade the sale of ice cream cones and other similar items. Eastwood's intellectual leanings and political connections are even more intriguing. Though he self-identified as a Republican when he was younger, he has shown that his support can be somewhat fluid, shifting between parties as necessary. He was known to criticize leaders from both parties throughout his life, demonstrating his intellectual and independent political position. But his political ventures have put him in the spotlight, and people tend to misunderstand and misconstrue his views as a result. Clint, The Life and Legend, written by Patrick McGilligan, painted a less flattering picture of Eastwood. He was depicted by McGilligan as someone who would resort to extreme means to satisfy his unquenchable hunger for power. The fact that Eastwood was known to fire workers that he believed were undercutting his authority was one factor that stood out. Claims made by his co-workers about how Eastwood affected them negatively depict an image of a domineering person. In an interview with CBS News, nevertheless, Eastwood strongly refuted this depiction. He thanked everyone who helped him with his endeavors and denied wanting complete control. He cited his roles as producer, director, and composer for the film $1 Million Baby as more instances of his collaborative style. This divergence of view highlights the complexities of Eastwood's character and the diversity of opinion on his leadership approach in the entertainment business. There is peace in the life of this legendary performer, director, and producer these days. He is involved in real estate projects and has made charitable donations. He became fascinated with real estate in the Carmel region of California while stationed at Fort Ord in the U.S. Army in the late 1960s, which ignited his interest in the field. Buying 283 acres of property along Highway 1 near Malpaso Creek on December 24, 1967, was his first major real estate transaction. This was the first step in his real estate career in the area. The 3,440 acres of forested property in Carmel Valley that Eastwood and fellow actor James Garner together bought in May 1968. The property, which was acquired for $640,000, is in an enviable location, directly across Carmel Valley Road from the Rancho Canada golf course. Importantly, neither of the two actors was involved for purely selfish reasons. In an act of generosity that showcased their dedication to the community, they gifted part of their Carmel Valley property to the Housing Authority in November 1983, with the designation that it be used for senior housing. No one could deny the far-reaching influence that Eastwood had on the real estate market. In order to preserve the area's scenic splendor, he sold a substantial parcel of property to Monterey County after establishing his production firm, Malpaso Productions. He used the money to buy land on the Odello Ranch, where he could avoid having his assets washed away by floods. He then gave out a lot of land and water rights to trusts. His real estate holdings spread all throughout the Golden State and beyond. Among his many real estate holdings are opulent compounds, such as a Carmel by the Sea complex of 15,940 square feet, a Bel Air house with a Spanish architecture, a desert contemporary home, and other properties in other states. Conservation easements demonstrated Eastwood's commitment to protecting the environment and the beauty of the Carmel area. His many housing arrangements throughout his life serve as a testament to his varied real estate holdings and his enduring dedication to ecological preservation. The current state of Clint Eastwood. Today, at the age of 93, Eastwood is preparing for what may be his last film, Juror 2. He is collaborating with Warner Brothers on this endeavor. Eastwood is proving that inventiveness has no bounds, even if he is now in his 90s. He is counting on Juror 2 to make a lasting impression, in contrast to his last picture, Cry Macho, in 2021, which did not receive the acclaim he had hoped for. A family guy named Justin Kemp is the film's protagonist when he sits on the jury in a high-stakes murder prosecution. After coming to terms with the fact that he caused a deadly accident, he struggles with a moral issue. His efforts to rescue the accused without drawing attention to his role in the tragedy intensify the scheme. Toni Collette plays the prosecutor, while Nicholas Hoult plays Kemp. Leslie Bibb, Kiefer Sutherland, Gabriel Basso, and Zoe Deutsch are featured in the cast. In Savannah, Georgia, where filming is now taking place, Eastwood was sighted on set. Although it has not been officially announced when the film will be released, audiences may expect to see it in theaters either later this year or next. Juror 2 Inches will definitely be a theatrical release, since Warner Brothers has promised to distribute it in theaters first, before releasing it on streaming services. Some peeks into Eastwood's life do appear on occasion, even though he does not have a certified social media presence. On November 28, 2022, his daughter Francesca Eastwood shared a snapshot of a happy occasion. Clint is seen chatting with his younger relatives in the photo. His smile betrays an easygoing and joyful time spent with them, maybe a vacation from his filmmaking pursuits. These peeks into Eastwood's private life and current film projects demonstrate a guy who is still passionate about his work and loves spending time with his family, which is encouraging news for those who are worried about his possible retirement. His on-set antics and recorded moments reveal a life full of enthusiasm and commitment to his work, even if he doesn't have a strong social media presence. I appreciate you tuning in. Stay tuned for more of our videos. The next video will play once you click the one now playing. Coming right up.